The video that you're about to watch is an excerpt from a live webinar. If you enjoy the contents of this video, please like and subscribe. I'd love to hear your comments. Thanks for watching. That those humans who are a little more cautious about, diving into the unknown or being super risky and things like that, those were the ones who survived and produced offspring. So, when I see that fear of the unknown, I tend to take that as an ancestral patterning that's sitting probably both in the DNA, but even probably more so in the epigenome around the DNA. That fear of the unknown. And I think that the biggest reason fear of the unknown exists is because we always come from a lesser state of evolution. And in the past, it was not directly experienced that everything is myself. I mean, okay, some people in the past also experienced everything was myself, but those people got enlightened and they're not here anymore. So, but maybe some of them are still predecessors, that could be. Anyway, the point here is that the overarching patterning within all of us is to be cautious of the unknown, and that those people who didn't just go running into a cave as a new home only to find a predator in there, right? Those who didn't, those who are a little more cautious, survived, and their offspring survived. So there was reason to fear the unknown. But that's at a very gross level. And this question is not about the unknown, like inside a cave there might be a saber-toothed tiger. This is about the unknown within ourselves. And when the fear of the unknown, that is a basic survival instinct, starts to turn into a self-referral loop, right? It gets so kind of entrenched or embedded in the awareness that it starts to become part of a loop that continues and continues. Then it starts to apply to areas that maybe aren't necessarily appropriate. And that certainly goes for fear of one's own nature. It's not to say that we don't all have a dark side in our nature, right? Until that little needle, that little thread of Kali is removed from the heart center, there's always going to be some element of the evil in creation. I'm going to use the word evil. I have avoided using that word all these years, but then I was reading it in the Bhagavad Gita and I thought, well, if it's in the Gita and it makes so much sense, then no worries there. Just to be bold, not to be afraid of the unknown, but to just boldly go in and just take a look at what's really going on. That evil rejoices in challenging good. Evil therefore gets a reward when it challenges good. Good doesn't get a reward. Good responds to the challenge of evil. And it doesn't like to have to do that, but it does it anyway because it's the right thing to do. Good and evil. But we all have aspects of both. And the reason we have aspects of both is because the human nervous system and the human physiology is wired up to experience the whole range of joy and happiness, all the way across the spectrum from momentary, ephemeral, very transient happiness that you get from, say eating some food that's really rich and sweet and salty or something like that, and to the deep, sacred, eternal joy of union with the divine, which is cultivated over a very long course of time and requires, it's the joy that comes from the good, if the good, okay, so the evil rejoices in challenging the good, right? If the good sits back and goes, I don't want to deal with the evil, I'm just going to run away, I'm just going to go away, then what happens is the evil doesn't get dealt with. And over the long course of time, everything falls apart. Society implodes. So even though it's not fun for the good to have to deal with the challenge of evil, the good does that because the good knows that further on down the road, if I deal with the evil now, when it's rising up and being all noisy and challenging, then I will win this battle. And that is how the story of the Gita goes. That right at the beginning, the two forces are facing off on the battlefield, and the evil is going, we're going to win because we've got more men than you do. And the good is like, okay, fine. And then it turns out that that idea, the bliss that came from we're going to win, and that the evil actually got like a little dopaminergic kickback from that, was completely illusion, because evil doesn't win the battle. The good wins. So what that means is that some kinds of bliss are sort of illusory. You could say they're illusory in that they're very transient. And then others are other type of bliss, that sort of deep, yummy union, like the glorious, inebriating rapture of union with the divine sticks with you. It sticks. It sticks. It's able to follow the path of evolution, and it's able to traverse the fire of purification all the way back into the source of creation. And then into source of creation, it hums like, oh yes, I'm just you anyway. And I'm here, and it's all, yes, 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 it's the truth, it's the truth. And then the next wave out carries that truth with it. Whereas that more like ephemeral bliss, that pleasure of just eating something completely fattening, it's like at the moment, but then later on, you're like, oof, I'm still trying to digest that 3 hours later or something. You know what I'm saying? Something like that. It feels like, oh, this is bliss, but then it gets inside. It's like, oh, wait a minute, it's not bliss at all. That's just nasty. So, but the thing is, as humans, we're wired up to experience both, and we need both. Because if we don't have that more short-term ephemeral bliss, there's no reason. Why are we living human lives? Why are we here in this material field? It really, the short-term bliss does give rise to a lot of survival behaviors like eating, right? Otherwise you wouldn't eat. If you didn't like it, you wouldn't eat, right? So eating, reproducing, all those things that kind of help sustain the long-term engagement and the perpetuation of the race. It needs both, but it needs both with such a fine balance that we don't self-destruct on either end of the spectrum. Because you could just be like, oh, I'm just in enraptured bliss constantly. And you know, like the rats who had the button they could push that was connected to an electrode that was connected to the center that made dopamine in their brain. They just pushed the button until they died. They just quit. They quit everything, quit sleeping, quit eating, quit everything, and just push the button. Push that button again, 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 again. So we don't want to be that. We don't want to be that rat either, right? That's why we have both. That's why we have both. We have the good and the evil. We need both, but we need to be big enough that we're able to transcend the whole system and make choices and decisions that are virtuous, life-sustaining, evolutionary, that leverage the entire system for the sake of evolution, essentially. And by doing so, one spontaneously rises to their pure potential. Okay, let me just make sure that I finish this question completely. Oh, the fact that subconscious and unconscious are hidden. Right. If there's an internal sense of there's something out there, but I don't know what it is, it means that it's actually not hidden. But what's hidden is the structure and means to explain and understand it. That's what's hidden. It's the means of understanding. And the means of understanding evolves. through the process of exposing oneself again and again and developing clearer and clearer sense of what that thing is. And it's primarily for those of you, here's healing for all of us, for those of you who have a desire to deeply and intimately and directly understand that part of your nature. The healing goes into sleep and dream state. Think of them as modes of the nervous system. There's waking state mode of the nervous system, there's dream state mode of the nervous system, and there's deep sleep state mode of the nervous system. They feel different. There's different speeds of brain waves dominating. The really, really slow ones, the delta waves, dominate in dream state. Excuse me, sleep state. Sorry, I'm just going into that state right there. Whereas alpha and theta, I think theta is associated with sleep state, a dream state. So delta, sleep state, theta, dream state. The different speeds at which the nervous system, the frequency of the nervous system hums. And then the waking state is more outward, like gamma. Like if you're engaged in like doing mathematical calculations or something, you get the gamma waves going. There's a whole spectrum from like a very slow pulses, about, I think it's like 2 or 3 per second, you know, like pulsing about like that, 2 or 3 per second, to many, many. I don't know how high they go. I don't have those numbers at the tip of my tongue, but you can look them up. I'm sure there are charts online. The state of self, where all the frequencies are experienced with utmost clarity, because the unconscious level of the mind is associated with deep sleep state, and the subconscious level of the mind is associated with dream state. That's why. So we do, like when we're in dream state and when we're in sleep state, we have the facility to understand our experience. It's just that when we're in waking state, we don't, from this level of functioning, we haven't sort of spent much time as a culture cultivating, you know, terms and concepts that allow us to navigate through the dream and sleep states from the waking state. But when the waking state is infused with the ultimate state of consciousness, the source of creation's ultimate silent, eternal, non-moving, etc., state of consciousness, then from the waking state, at least it becomes clear that the other states of functioning are natural and nurturing. They're nurturing, right? Dream and sleep state, like that rejuvenates us. So nothing to be afraid of there. And this shift that's taking place right now for everybody, which is a kind of like it's a shift in, it feels like a kind of stabilization of the silence of being in the court of light. And that from that central location in the astral body, the field of the electromagnetic field, the spectrum of the energy of self, is rearranging slightly. There's opening of meridians and channels in the astral body that help the flow of experience from deep sleep, dream state, and waking state to interface a little bit more nicely. Remember a few minutes ago I said, oh, I dreamed this. Well, the dream that I dreamed about this was like, 5 years ago at least. I'd kind of forgotten about that dream, but then it just came right back to me. And it was necessary because it was a prophetic dream. And I was dreaming about the healing that I was doing at that time. And it brought me information that I needed to facilitate the healing in the highest and best possible way. So it's not that the nervous system can't access the power of the dream state and the unconscious levels of the mind during waking state. It's just that we're kind of like not in the habit of it. And to begin this healing that's happening now is to support the initiation of beginning to engage that habit. Because the flexibility and stability that integrates into the nervous system by cultivating that habit is also, it also helps to facilitate the awakening process and the process of enlightenment. So ultimately what's happening in the central core, in the cord of light, is increasing stability and adaptability. And that creates a condition whereby the astral body kind of opens up and is able to access the modes of the nervous system in dreaming and sleep state, even when you're in waking state, and vice versa. So that in dreaming and sleep state, there's lucidity, right? You remember your dreams, even if they're years ago. You can do it. If I can do it, you can do it. We can all do it together. We do it together. We do it together. And I can see that I'm conducting this healing also in dream and sleep state for all of us. So that means that we will review this in dream and sleep state. It's good to review from several different angles, right? Because you gain a broader perspective.